June 17th, 1972, 2:30 a.m. Frank Wills had already pulled the tape off once. Someone had put it back. That wasn't a break-in gone wrong. That was a covert operation still running. Inside the Democratic National Committee headquarters, police found 5 men with surgical gloves, professional lockpicks, and a portable wiretap unit bought with $3,500 in sequential $100 bills, cash traced back to a classified slush fund controlled by the White House. They buried that connection for 26 months. They shredded documents. They erased 18.5 minutes of recorded tape. They told the American people it was a third-rate burglary pulled off by low-level amateurs. But you don't fund amateur burglars with sequential bills from a secret presidential campaign account. So who gave the order, and what were they so desperate to find inside that office that they sent men back in twice? Allow into the record. Here is what the political history skips. This was not the first break-in. The team had already penetrated the DNC offices weeks before June 17th, 1972. They had already planted listening devices, already extracted recordings. The operation was not new. The target was not unknown. You do not run a second black bag job on a location you have already cleared, not by any operational protocol. You go back only when something specific has failed, or when something specific needs to come out. So what were 5 CIA-trained operatives doing in that building at 2:30 in the morning? The answer is in a phone. The men were not amateurs. That is the second thing the textbook version gets wrong. E. Howard Hunt had run covert operations for the CIA for over 20 years. He worked psychological warfare in Guatemala in 1954. He helped plan the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961. James McCord had served as the CIA's chief of physical security. He had spent his career protecting intelligence assets and burying operational records. The 4 men with them had all moved inside CIA operations against Cuba: Virgilio Gonzalez, Frank Sturgis, Eugenio Martinez, Bernard Barker. 3 were Cuban-American. All 4 had been trained in the same doctrine, the same networks, and the same catastrophic failure. These men knew what a black bag job looked like. They had done this before, but their last real fieldwork was 11 years ago. Their tradecraft had not been tested in the field since that disaster. They were running a maintenance call in 1972 using muscle memory from 1961, and the gap showed. Alfred Baldwin was their lookout. Stationed across the street at the Howard Johnsons with a direct line of sight to the Watergate entrance. He had a radio. He was watching. He missed the police cruiser. He called the warning in after the officers were already inside the building. The tape on the latch had appeared twice that night. The second time is the one that matters. A guard removed it, and someone put it back. That is not carelessness. That is a team that could not abort, because they had not yet completed the objective. They were still looking for something. The malfunctioning bug was not on the office of the DNC chairman, Lawrence O'Brien. It was on a secondary line, a specific phone assigned to a specific staffer. The device placed during the first entry had been returning noise, or silence, or nothing usable. The June 17th mission was a maintenance call. Get in, replace the unit, restore the feed, get out. But here is the question no official account has ever answered directly. Why that phone? The chairman's phone was the logical target for political intelligence, party strategy, donor lists, campaign decisions. That is standard political espionage. Illegal, but the logic is visible. The secondary line the team was targeting recovered something else entirely. Personal calls, private scheduling, conversations between specific individuals, not party strategy, something narrower, something that required a specific person to be on that line for the intelligence to have any value at all. Whatever was already on the recordings from the first entry was significant enough to send 5 men back into a building they had already been caught leaving once. What were those calls? Who was on that line? The answer does not appear in the Senate testimony. It does not appear in the FBI files released under FOIA. It does not appear in any public record. It is the gap at the center of the case before the other gap. On June 20th, 1972, 3 days after the arrests, Richard Nixon sat down with his Chief of Staff, H.R. Haldeman. The conversation lasted over an hour. It was recorded, as all Oval Office conversations were recorded. That recording was later subpoenaed. 18.5 minutes of it were gone. Rosemary Woods, the White House secretary, testified she had accidentally caused the erasure while transcribing. She demonstrated the physical position this would have required. Audio engineers analyzed the tape and found multiple separate erasures, each requiring a deliberate button press across a recording that could not have been erased by any single accident. The 18.5 minutes that are missing are precisely the window in which Nixon and Haldeman would have discussed what the operation was actually for, what had already been retrieved, what the second entry was sent to complete. The gap is not incidental. The gap is the answer, erased. The cover-up that followed was not designed to hide 5 men with tape on a door. Political embarrassments are survivable. What followed was not a cover-up of an embarrassment. Hush money reached all 5 men within days of the arrests. McCord wrote a letter to the sentencing judge 2 years later, breaking ranks, naming names. The obstruction ran through the Justice Department, the FBI, and the Office of the President. You do not destroy a presidency to cover a burglary. You destroy a presidency to cover what the burglars were sent to find. The remembered history is a third-rate break-in, a paranoid president brought down by his own men, a scandal with a clear villain and a clear timeline. The operational record is different. 5 CIA-trained assets on a maintenance call for a bug attached to a specific phone in a specific office, monitoring a specific person whose calls could never be allowed into evidence. The tape on the latch appeared twice that night. No one has ever fully explained why.